Lesson 1.2, Agent Architecture Fundamentals.
Today's goal: understand how agents think and build a task helper agent.
Welcome back, I'm Yannick and I'm here with Sarah for Lesson 1.2, where we dive deep into agent architecture.
In our last lesson, you built your first agent. Today we're going to understand how agents actually think and process information.
By the end of this lesson, you'll have a much deeper understanding of agent design principles and a much more sophisticated agent to show for it. Let's start with the fundamental architecture. Every agent, no matter how complex, has three core components.
Think of it like the human brain. We have senses that gather information, a thinking process that analyzes it, and actions we take based on our conclusions.
The input layer is where agents gather information, from users, files, web searches, or databases.
The processing engine is where real intelligence happens: AI analysis, data transformation, decision-making logic.
And the output layer is how agents deliver value, reports, messages, actions, or formatted results.
What makes this powerful is that you can have multiple inputs feeding into complex processing chains, creating sophisticated workflows.
The secret to connecting these components is understanding variables and data flow.
Variables are essentially the agent's memory system. They store information and pass it between different steps in your workflow.
Think of variables as labeled containers. When one step produces information, it stores it in a container with a specific label.
Then later steps can open that container and use the information. This is how agents maintain context and build on previous actions.
The naming convention is crucial. We use double curly braces and descriptive names like out variable name.
Today we're building something more sophisticated, a task helper agent that demonstrates advanced architecture concepts.
This agent will take a task description and deadline, then use AI to break it into manageable steps, estimate time requirements, and suggest priorities.
What makes this advanced is that we'll use multiple variables, conditional logic, and complex AI prompting to create truly intelligent behavior.
You'll see how professional level agents handle complex workflows and a multi-step reasoning process.
Let's build this together and explore agent architecture through hands-on experience.
Alright, let's start fresh with a new agent. So let's click Create Agent, start from scratch, Create Agent, New Agent, and now you have to name it.
So we're going to call this one Task Helper, and for the description we'll just say breaks down complex tasks into steps with deadlines.
Down here you can name this, so we can name it Task Helper, and then this will be the link for it, and you'll see how it has it at the end. Also up here you can choose an icon like the gear, and that'll show up here. Alright, let's head to the Actions tab.
Before we add any steps, let's think through the architecture. What inputs do we need?
We need the task description and the deadline, but we also need to consider what processing steps will follow.
Good point. The inputs need to provide enough information for the AI to make intelligent decisions about task breakdown and prioritization. Let's add our first input. We're going to go to Add Action, Get User Input, and give the prompt as describe the task or project you need help with.
Notice how the prompt encourages detailed responses. The quality of our inputs directly affects the quality of our outputs. You can put some examples here if you want, but it's just like some examples of projects. I don't think we really need that. We can put a default value, which I don't think we need either, and then we'll just have to name it. So we'll name it out_task description.
Something important to consider is that you don't use curly braces when you're naming a variable. You use it when you call a variable, but don't make the mistake of putting it in the name.
Okay, so for the deadline, we need to think about how AI will process time information.
Let's go ahead and add action, get user input, and type the prompt as when does this need to be completed? Again, I don't think we really need any examples, but you could put a week, a month, anything like that. We don't really need a default value here, so we can just save this as out deadline.
Alright, now comes the interesting part, our processing architecture. We need to break this down into logical steps.
First step, task, analysis, and breakdown. Let's go ahead and add action, use AI, use Gen AI, And here the prompt architecture is crucial.
we need to give the AI clear instructions and sufficient content. You could either choose to write your own prompt, like you're an expert project manager, analyze the following task, and break it down into specific actionable steps. It's always important to include something like you are the expert, or you know a lot about this field, you're a doctor in this field, or whatever it is. But it's important to tell the AI that it's like well versed in it. Another thing you can do is you can go to something like ChatGPT, and you could get ChatGPT to create a prompt for you. This is probably a more in-depth and will provide you a better prompt. So if you want to try this, I think this is what we'll try today. So I wrote, could you generate a prompt that will use then our variable, and this has the double curly braces because we're calling it, we're not naming it. And then this variable is the description of a task that needs to be analyzed and broken down into steps that'll fit into a timeline of then this deadline. And at the end, we always include use best prompt engineering practices, just to make sure that it uses prompt engineering practices that the LLM will understand. So we can submit this. And you don't copy any of this stuff, but you can start here and copy all of this.
Then you can go ahead and just paste that right in here and hit save at the bottom, or name it.
We can name this outbreak down. Okay, so now we save this, and next we have to think about what is our second processing step.
So this will be the priority analysis based on the breakdown and the deadline. So we're going to go ahead and hit add action, use AI, use Gen.ai.
And for here, you can either go to ChatGPT again and do that, or we'll show you how it looks if you just put your own prompt in there. So this is a prompt that we've already created. Based on the task breakdown and deadline, identify high, medium, and low priority items. The breakdown of the task and deadline is out. Breakdown. For something where it might provide an output that's large, and that will be in the variable, you want the variable at the end, because if this variable is somewhere in the middle here, then it'll read like based on the task breakdown and then all the text that's in here in the variable, and then it'll read the rest of this, and it just confuses the AI.
While building agents, you want to make sure you do everything you can to make it as clear for the LLM as possible in order to get the best results. So now let's create our output variable name, which we'll store as out priority analysis. And hit save.
Finally, we need the synthesis step that combines everything into an actionable plan.
So we're going to go ahead and add action and add a third LLM call.
So this prompt needs to pull together all the previous analysis. So we can say something like create a comprehensive action plan that combines the task breakdown, timeline, and priorities into a clear, actionable format. Okay. So now you could also do this with ChatGPT, or you could do it like this. ChatGPT will probably give you a better prompt for it, but you can also do it like this. It might be a little simpler for you if you already have something in your mind.
For a more complex task, you want to make sure you do generate a prompt with something like ChatGPT, just because it knows how to write a prompt that an AI will understand. But for something like this, it's okay to just do something kind of short and sweet. We want to make sure we add our variable at the end.
This is the reason that it's good to name your variables, because now you remember that, okay, the first one was the description they provided, this was the deadline they provided. Right here, this is the breakdown, and this is our priority analysis. So we can say add this, which is, we can just say this is the breakdown, and we can just make this clear, and this is your This is the priority list. And we can add our variable. So now with these, this is probably a pretty good prompt, and now we can just name it, and we can name it out_action_plan and save that.
Now our final step is to go add action and just create our output, show user output, and you're just going to insert your final variable here,
which is out_action_plan that you just made. You can choose different formatting options. Usually auto is the most simple and easy output, so that's what we'll be going with. And you just click save, and then always remember, click publish changes, and then you can go and test it. Now we give it an example like plan a company presentation for a board meeting.
And we can set the deadline as 1 week.
So we'll click go and we'll see how this handles it. You can also, there's something up here called the dev console, which if you want to click it, it can show each step and like what is actually going on inside. I know it can look like a lot, especially for these two, because these are very simple steps. But when you're trying to debug or if you have some issues, it can be helpful to look at the LLM steps, and you can see here it has the instructions, and this is what it responded with. So this is a long piece of text. And now you have the next one. This one took all that text and it put it into a response with the priority, and then this is the last one, and here it gave us something. So comprehensive action plan meeting for board presentation, 1 week. So it just gave us some random dates because we didn't give it the actual time we have right now. June 10th to June 17th, 2024. End of day, Monday, June 17th, 2024. Okay, so that's the deadline, timeline, project. So this is a pretty in-depth, as you see. It gives you lots of in-depth features. It gives you, maybe if you want, you can also add an LLM for formatting, but that is something we will probably learn later. But as you see, this gives us a much more in-depth response than our previous one, which is just a little personalized greeting. And with things like this, you can build them. It doesn't take a long time, but this can save you a lot of work of typing this all up and formatting and all of this stuff, especially with like the priority things. It'll really get you to like figure it all out. Now we're going to head back to the workflow. So this agent demonstrates several advanced architectural concepts that separate professional agents from basic ones.
First, we used chained AI processing, so each step built on the previous analysis rather than working alone.
The variable management shows proper data flow, clear naming, logical progression, and appropriate scope for each piece of information.
We also implemented what we call contextual prompting, which is each AI step has access to relevant previous analysis, enabling more intelligent decision making.
From a user experience perspective, the architecture produces actionable results, not just information. The user gets a plan that they can immediately implement.
The 3-layer processing, breakdown, prioritization, synthesis mirrors how human project managers actually think through complex tasks.
This is scalable architecture, could handle anything from personal tasks to complex business projects by adjusting the prompting and processing depth.
Key architectural principles we demonstrated are logical input design, sequential processing with clear dependencies, and value-focused output formatting.
Also, something about this is when we actually tested it, we didn't give it too in-depth of a prompt. We just said plan a company presentation for a board meeting. It doesn't really know anything about our board meeting, but if you provide more detail, it can give you things that will actually relate to what you're doing more, because this is a good basis and a good baseline, but it doesn't have the specific details of your board meeting. So remember, if you want a detailed output, then you need to put a detailed input. Summary and next steps. Today we learned key architectural principles, logical input design, sequential processing, and value-focused output formatting.
Next, apply what you learned today and answer the mini quiz in the Google Classroom. Also complete the Module 1 mini project. Build your personal learning assistant agent.
There'll be a tutorial on how to build that agent on the Google Classroom, and try it on your own first, but if you need help, you can always go look at that tutorial. Next, we're on to Module 2.